we'll be discussing today's chapter under various headings. We'll be discussing about various drugs, topical drugs that are available and their indications and their adverse effects. So what is topical therapy? Topical therapy implies delivery of medicine at the site of the lesion only. You're not giving anything orally or intravenous. You're not giving parenterally, but you're just giving the medicines topically only at the site of the lesion. This is the mainstay of treatment in most of the dermatological disorder. You must have seen most of the dermatologists, topical treatment forms a mainstay of the treatment. We go for the systemic treatment only when topical is not effective. So we should know very well about this topical treatments. While prescribing topical agents to the patient, physician must consider the product itself and the disease to be treated and the patient. You should see all the three aspects of treatment. You should know about the product, you should know about the disease to be treated, and also you should consider the indications and contraindications in the given patient. So what are the advantages and disadvantages when it comes to topical treatment? Usually advantages is it reduces the systemic side effects, which is very obvious, and it has the accessibility and visibility of the therapy of the skin. The patient sees and applies to the lesion and he sees the changes immediately. So that's an advantage. There are certain medicines which cannot be given orally. They have to be given topically, such as salicylic acid. Whereas there are certain disadvantages too. The disadvantages being it requires a lot of counseling, it requires a lot of determination from the patient. He has to use it at the right way, not just because the dose is dependent on how patient uses and various other aspects. So allergic reactions also can be noted very easily for these type of topical treatments compared to oral drugs, and penetration of molecule is very variable. It depends on multiple factors, so not all the topical medicines act uniformly. So what are the factors affecting the drug delivery? The factors affecting the drug delivery are age of the patient, traumatized or diseased skin, site of application, potency, and vehicle used. Age of the patient in the sense absorption is usually more in neonates and children as compared to adults because they usually have a thin skin. Traumatized or diseased skin always allows easier penetration. So you have to be careful while giving it in a broken skin. Site of application. Absorption is always better in the following sites, that is mucous membrane, scrotum, eyelid, face, chest, upper arms and thighs, lower legs, dorsa of the hands and feet, palmar and plantar skin followed by nails. So this is the order. Usually it is absorption is very high in the mucous membrane, whereas comparatively low in palmar and plantar aspect of the nails. From descending order, these are the sites. So potency wise, higher the concentration of the drugs in the topical formation, better is the absorption and therapeutic effect. And when regarding the vehicle use, ointments always have better penetration than creams, lotions, gels or paste. So there are certain factors which you should remember whenever you are prescribing a cream. That is, see for the age group, don't give very strong creams in neonates and children. See if the skin is broken or diseased. Site of application, remember the sites in the descending order, so that you know what potency to give in which site. And vehicle used also is important to which determines the absorption capacity of the individual drug. The other factors being occlusion, if you occlude the area after you apply the cream, usually the penetration increases. Hydration, that is if the area is well hydrated. For example, if you simply immerse the water for 5 minutes prior to application of a topical agent, usually the penetration is better. Frequency of application. Usually frequency of application is not an important factor. The effectiveness may not greatly increase if you keep on applying for 10 times in a day versus applying once in a day for 10 days. But we may in fact see more side effects. So, but for emollients, it does, yes. For people who are having a very dry skin, if you apply emollients more frequently, it helps a lot. Quantity of drug, yes. If you apply too much for a wider area, absorption may be more, but for a single unit square surface area, the quantity doesn't matter much. Massaging, that is vigorous rubbing, obviously will increase the penetration. Presence of hair follicles enhances the drug penetration. So it's hairy areas, usually drug penetration is higher. Vehicle is a substance which brings the topical medication in contact with the skin. Types of vehicle is liquids, semisolids, and solids. Liquid vehicles are those such as solutions, lotions, liniments, and suspensions. Semisolids are those such as creams, ointments, pastes, and gels. Solids are those such as powders. So solutions can be different types, like it could be a wet dressing, it could be the baths such as Pua bath, and tinctures and paints are the other part of the liquids which are available as a form of solutions. What are wet dressing? Wet dressing means, so usually what happens is we use certain solutions such as normal saline or Burrows solution or Condit solution. While doing the dressing, we apply this. That is what is wet dressing is all about. This is done in conditions where there is a lot of crust or where there is a lot of thick adherent skin or dead tissue over there. Then we use this wet dressings to remove the such dead tissue. Then we use certain medication in the form of solutions and immerse the whole body in such solution. That is what we use in Pua bath. That is Pua bath, you must be knowing. Soralin is used as an photo, is used as something uh, to do with before phototherapy. We use this Soralin, which is available in solution form. That's used. That is applied onto the water, which is in the bathtub. Then the patient goes and lies in it and immerses his whole body for a specified time period. Then the ultraviolet A exposure is given to his whole body. This is what is POA bath. This will be explained more in clinicals as well as during the class on phototherapy. Then we have tinctures and paints, which are basically applied and which evaporates immediately. So these are the various that are used, and there are certain lotions which are available. These are liquid or semi-solid preparation and consists of solutions of drug in water, alcohol, or liquids. On evaporation, this drug is deposited on the skin surface. Then we have liniments, then we have poultices. So liniments are non-aqueous solution of drugs in oil or alcoholic solutions of soap, whereas poultices are wet solid masses of particles, sometimes heated, that are applied to the diseased skin. The absorption is usually better when we do that. This is used in such as leg ulcers, chronic exudative lesions of leg ulcers. We use such medications. So there is a formulation which you should remember. Semisolids, we have creams and ointments. These are the most commonly used ones. Creams are those which are semisolid emulsion containing two immiscible liquids, that is either oil in water or water in oil. Ointments are slightly semi-solid, which are soft to firm and very greasy in application, and they have a lot of the concentration goes all up to 40%, and they're very occlusive and can also act as an emollient. So in dry lesions, we usually prefer to give ointments, whereas in other cases, we usually prefer to give creams. Then we have semi-solids such as pastes and gels. Pastes are those preparations which are very greasy base and usually used on the mucosal surfaces. Gels are soft and semi-solid preparations which liquefy on contact with the skin. They are used in acne-prone skin, Gels are commonly used, and then we have powders, which are solid preparation, usually used to promote drying or reduced friction. There is certain newer drug delivery system, which is nanotechnology and microemulsions, where the drug particles, solid lipid, are in very small, and drugs are entrapped within a lipid core matrix so that it helps in better absorption. Microemulsions again are thermodynamically stable form of mixture of oil and water stabilized by surfactants, can solubilize many poorly soluble drugs. Then certain drugs are available as liposomes, which helps in better absorption, and microsponges again for the same with less irritation. Uh, this newer formulation are basically there to promote better compliance, reduce side effects of certain topical treatments. Mm, so we need to choose these. So these are instructions which is very important when you are giving any medication in the form of topical treatment. Then coming to topical various medications that are available. Let's start with topical steroids, the most commonly available one. It acts by, as any cortisone, as any corticosteroid, it acts by binding to specific DNA sequence, that is glucocorticoid responsive elements, and transcription of certain specific mRNA are controlled, leading to anti-inflammatory, immunosuppressive, anti-proliferative, and vasoconstriction action. So these are the usual method of mechanism of action of potencies. You should choose them appropriately according to the age and according to the areas that you are using. So if you are using it in a form of palms and soles, you can prefer using a higher potent, super potent drug. As we are using under the eyelets or in the neonates, always prefer using least potent ones.
So, the other form of treatment is intralesional corticosteroids. Intralesional corticosteroid is a type of treatment where you inject the medicines such as corticosteroids directly into the lesion. You don't apply it topically, but instead use the insulin syringe, fine needle. You inject it directly to the lesion. When we do this, especially when the lesion is very thick or hard, such as keloids, hypertrophic scars, prurigo nodularis lesion, nodulocytic acne, in such cases, we use a method called as intralesional corticosteroids, where we inject long-acting steroids such as triamcinolone acetonide into the lesion. This steroid stays in the lesion for a long time and releases and shows its effect for usually for a period of a month. So we repeat this treatment once in a month. So what are the indication of corticosteroids? Topical. It's usually used in eczematous disorders. We know that most of the skin conditions, most of the inflammatory skin conditions, we use steroids such as eczemas, papillosquamous disorders, autoimmune conditions such as bullous dermatosis, connective tissue diseases, neutrophilic dermatosis, certain alopecias, not all alopecias, such as alopecia areata, where immunological phenomena is involved, we use corticosteroids, insect bite reactions, photodermatosis, pigmentary disorders such as vitiligo, and many more. There are certain contraindications for treatment, such as uh, if there is any infection in the underlying lesion wherever you want to treat it, it's better to avoid corticosteroids. And whenever there is hypersensitivity to topical steroids, you don't use steroids over there. So these are certain conditions: chronic eczema, alopecia areata, lichen planus, psoriasis, topical corticosteroids. Then, so what are the side effects of topical corticosteroids? Though it's very effective, it comes with certain side effects. So this we should remember, and we should not give topical corticosteroids for a long term. It can lead to skin thinning. It can lead to striae formation. The skin will become red, and most of the times the skin will show certain hypopigmentation, and there can be atrophy of the skin. There can be certain other infections which can happen if you use the topical steroids for a long time, such as folliculitis, and you'll always the skin will be prone for infections. It could be fungal or bacterial. That you should keep it in mind whenever you're using topical steroids. So the most common side effect that we see is atrophy and hypopigmentation along with striae formation. So this is a clear picture where you are seeing the excess use of steroid leading to hypopigmentation. The skin has become white. And this is excessive use of steroid on the face leading to skin thinning and visible of vessels, which is the topical steroid induced telangiectasia. Then you have topical steroid induced perioral dermatitis. Whenever the strong steroid is used, potent steroid is used in the face, usually the perioral dermatitis is the presentation where patient presents with fissuring and burning sensation around the mouth. This is atrophy that is following giving a steroid. The skin becomes thin. You can see an atrophic plaque here. This is striae formation, lot of stretch marks like appearance, that is striae, especially at the areas where the steroid has been used for a long time. This is very common picture in the groins, especially when people start using over-the-counter steroid creams for tinea infections. Then there is acneiform eruption, that is that patient uses steroid for a long time on the face and the acne develops because of the steroid, that is called as acneiform eruption. Another feature called as hypertrichosis. Whenever you see such amount of hypertrichosis without any uh, evident hormonal disturbance, you do look for steroid usage on the face. So there can be systemic side effects because of topical corticosteroids, which you may not expect most of the time, but it can happen. A person who is using potent topical corticosteroids such as clobetasol, halobutazol, can develop Cushing syndrome. That's one thing which you should always keep in mind. Even though you're giving topical corticosteroid, its absorption can lead to Cushing syndrome, suppression of hypo-HPA axis, hyperglycemia, intracranial hypertension, growth retardation in children, reduced bone mineral density, edema, hypocalcemia, and hypertension. So all these are the side effects of systemic corticosteroids, but they are very well possible even with the topical corticosteroid. That you have to be careful. Very potent corticosteroids. Okay, so that's about corticosteroids. Now we'll move to anti-acne medications. So what are the anti-acne medications in topicals? The most commonly used is retinoids. Retinoid is there in almost all grades of acne. We usually commonly used topical retinoids are tretinoin and adapalene. Tretinoin is available as 0.025% and 0.05%, whereas adapalene is available as 0.1%. How does it act? It blocks the inflammatory cascade, decreases the hyperproliferation in the follicles, and stimulate dermal collagen production. Side effects is irritation and photoirritants. So how usually we prefer to give this retinoids in the grade 1 acne, but it's also given in all the other grades of acne, but very commonly used is grade 1. It decreases the sebum production, it decreases the hyperproliferation in the follicles. Basically, it clears the acne from the skin. Benzoyl peroxide, this is another very useful drug in acne. It is an oxidizing agent, so it directly targets the pathogen which is involved in acne, that is Propionibacterium acne. It is lipophilic, so penetrates better into sebaceous glands, and till date there is no resistance to this. Then we use certain topical antibiotics such as clindamycin, erythromycin. Commonly used ones are these two, but others are azithromycin and nadifloxacin are available, metronidazole and even dapsone is available. All these target Propionibacterium acne. And then there is another topical which is commonly used as azelaic acid, which is 10%, 15%, and 20%. This we use. It acts both on acne as well as on the post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation that is usually associated with acne. Then there is nicotinamide gel, which is available as 4%, though this is not the primary medications that's used. Usually it's uh, combination with any of the topical. Then there are certain other medicines which can also be used for acne, such as salicylic acid. This is used only usually in grade 1 acne. As a comedolytic, it's a keratolytic and decreases the comedogenic formation. So other one is ivermectin gel. gel doesn't. Ivermectin gel is not commonly used, but it can be used in especially in rosacea, acne rosacea, where we think one of the etiological agent is Demodex folliculorum. So, as an antiparasitic action, ivermectin is used in acne rosacea. You can remember, such as bacitracin, polymyxin B, neomycin, neomycin, and metronidazole, which are the other ones which are used. So, what are the antifungals that are used in topicals in dermatology? Antifungals that are used topicals in topical form is we have azoles, which is fluconazole, ketoconazole, sultaconazole, leberconazole, and we have allylamines such as terbinafine, and then we have amorolfine, which is a morpholins. So we have certain antifungals also which are available in topical form, and they are commonly used. Most of the tinea and other dermatophytosis we use antifungals. There are certain other antifungals which are rarely used, such as nystatin, cycloparaxolamine, zinc pyriton, and selenium disulfide. These they, are not so commonly used, but in certain conditions we use this, such as in candidiasis, we use nystatin. In dermatophytes, we use cycloparaxolamine, and in versicolor, pityriasis versicolor, we use zinc pyriton and selenium disulfide. So what are the antivirals the topicals are? There are certain antiviral topicals available, such as acyclovir and penciclovir, but we rarely use this. So not so very important to remember, because most of the time viral infection, oral drug is the indication. We don't use topicals in any of this viral infection. Then coming to anti-parasitic agents, important thing to remember here, because in many of the parasitic infestation we use topical treatment only most of the times. Commonly used anti-parasitic agent is permethrin, which is used in scabies, which is used in pediculosis capitis. Many of the parasitic infestation we use these agents, permethrin, which is available as 5% cream and 1% lotion. 5% cream is used for body surface area, whereas the 1% lotion is used for the hairy area, scalp. Then we have gamma benzene hexachloride 1% lotion, GBHC lotion. Then we have benzyl benzoate, which is available as 25% emulsion. Then we have malathion, which is 0.5% lotion. So there are various agents which we use as topical form. The other one being crotamitone, 10% lotion, precipitated sulfur, 6% lotion, and ivermectin. Ivermectin is also available as topical, such as 1% cream and shampoos. There are certain calcineurin inhibitors which are available in topical form, such as tacrolimus, pimecrolimus. These are commonly used in immunological conditions such as vitiligo, lichen planus. They are immunosuppressive drugs, so they are and also do some immunomodulation. They how do they immunosuppress? By inhibiting the proliferation of CD4 T cells and by inhibition of cytokines and calcineurin, immunomodulation by inhibition of mast cell and inhibition of mediators released from the mast cell and basophils. Release of local neuropeptide and transmission of pain is also inhibited. On keratinocytes, they increase the stem cell factor release, which causes proliferation of melanoblast and melanocytes. Side effects of this is local burning, pruritus, infection, and risk of malignancy, which is very rare. So, what are the uses of calcineurin inhibitors? The calcineurin inhibitors are usually used in indications include eczemas and atopic dermatitis, vitiligo, such psoriasis, lichen planus, connective tissue disorders, and also in certain dermatitis. There are certain contraindications for this. Never use this in pregnancy or infected lesions or in photo exposed areas. Ideally be careful. Conditions where there is a breach in skin, because they can cause certain irritation, and or the mucous membrane and eyes, pimecrolimus should be completely avoided. So these are the two drugs, pimecrolimus and tacrolimus. You should remember in topical calcineurin. Then we have certain cytotoxic and immunomodulatory agents which are available in topical form. One is imiquimod. This is 5% cream. Mechanism of action of this is it triggers the immune system to recognize the presence of viral infections and tumors and mounts the Th1 weighted cellular immune response. Application is 3 times in a week. Imiquimod is available in a sachet. It has to be applied 3 times in a week. That's it, such as Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for a period of around 8 to 12 weeks. Its common indications being warts, actinic keratosis, molluscum contagiosum, certain neoplasms such as Bowenite papillosis, SCC, varicose carcinoma. We can use imiquimod. Side effects being local is erythema and irritation, and systemic being fatigue, fever, myalgia, central nervous and peripheral nervous system disorders, influenza-like symptoms. So we should remember what is side effect is erythema and irritation is the most common side effect that you will see with this imiquimod creams. There is certain other cytotoxic agents such as bleomycin and 5-fluorouracil also, but these are more commonly used as intralesional injections. And also topical 5-fluorouracil is used in warts, BCC, Boynoid papillosis, and certain malignancies, locally invasive. The keratolytic agents are usually treated whenever there is hyperkeratosis. We use keratolytic agents. These break cell to cell addition and thus remove the excessive scales. The commonly used keratolytic is being salicylic acid. Urea is the other commonly used keratolytic agent. Moisturizers were the commonly used topical. Moisturizers hydrate the skin and use moisturizers in and out. Common classification we use it as emollients and humectants. Emollients are those greasy substances which hydrate the stratum corneum by forming a greasy layer over the skin surface, thus preventing the transepidermal water loss and retaining moisture in the skin. The common emollient used is liquid paraffin. Very commonly we use liquid paraffin. Humectants are those substances which hydrate the stratum corneum by absorbing the water from the external environment or from the deeper layer of the skin. The commonly one are glycerin, urea, lactic acid, and sodium lactate. So we have these two type of moisturizers, emollients and humectants. Sunscreens are the one which are common use, another common usually topical, which protects our skin from ultraviolet radiations. The commonly we see in the sunscreen something called as SPF. You should know what is SPF. SPF is the number of times the sunscreen protects your skin from the ultraviolet rays when compared to an unprotected skin. So if you have applied a sunscreen of SPF 25, it means that your skin is protected 25 times more from ultraviolet rays than a unprotected skin who has not applied the sunscreen. So we use a calculation such as minimal erythemal dose of ultraviolet B with sunscreen applied to the ratio of minimal erythemal dose of ultraviolet B light without sunscreen. This is what is SPF. So we use broad spectrum sunscreen most of the time, which covers both ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B protection. There are certain water resistant sunscreens, there are certain waterproof sunscreens. Based on the time duration, they remain active in the presence of water. So commonly we have UVB blockers such as octinoxate and octisalate, and UVA blockers such as avobenzene and oxybenzene. There are certain physical blockers such as titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. These physical blockers are the best, but have this cost. They don't have any cosmetic appeal. You must have seen players, cricketers who apply this white paste on their skin. These are physical sunscreen. They play in the sun for the whole day and they need a very good sun protection. So they use most of the time the physical blockers along with the broad spectrum sunscreen. So titanium dioxide and zinc oxide are the method of application. Always apply a good amount of sunscreen on your face. Don't just apply a very small amount, and it has to be applied. Yeah, it has to be applied 30 minutes before exposure to sunlight ideally, and it has to be reapplied every 3 to 4 hours. And if you are going for a swimming or sweating, do reapply it after your activity. Commonly used in most of the conditions such as photodermatosis, photosensitive skin disorders, SLE, xeroderma pigmentosa, and also in generally prescribed sunscreens. There are certain depigmenting creams which you should know when it comes to the topicals. The most common depigmenting agents that we use is hydroquinone. Hydroquinone comes in various percentages, 2 to 5%. It inhibits tyrosinase, thus inhibiting conversion of dopa to melanin. So commonly used hydroquinone is we use in melasma and various other hyperpigmentary conditions. There are certain depigmenting agents which are more stronger, such as monobenzyl ether or hydroquinone 20%. Then there are retinoids, tretinoin, and adapalene also depigmenting agent. Acylic acid, which I had mentioned earlier in acne treatment, usually we use 15% in acne treatment, but when it comes in 20%, it also helps in removing the hyperpigmentation. Kojic acid is the other and depigmenting agent, which is common and it's quite safe to use. The common indication, as we explained, it is melasma. It's brownish pigmentation, which is commonly seen on the malar area in most many females. So we use such depigmenting agents in such conditions, and usually we use a combination of hydroquinone, tretinoin, and dexamethasone. Anesthetic agents which are used topical most commonly EMLA, that is eutectic mixture of local anesthetic, where 50% lidocaine and 50% prilocaine is used. Mm. We use commonly in most of the dermatological procedures, dermatosurgical procedures, lasers. We apply this and keep it wait for a period of 45 minutes, and then we carry on the procedures. There are certain other miscellaneous topicals such as you should remember. So one of them is calcipotriol, which is a vitamin D derivative. Um, it's used in psoriasis. Then we have anthralin, another drug which is used in psoriasis, which basically used as a short contact therapy. Have coal tar again used in psoriasis, which is a byproduct of petroleum distillation. It suppresses the DNA synthesis in keratinocytes, thus decreases the proliferation. Then we have certain antipruritic drugs such as doxepin 5% cream, menthol 16%, and then we have phenol in low concentration 0.5 to 2%. We have soothing agents such as calamine, antiperspirants such as aluminum chloride hexahydrate, formaldehyde soaks, botulinum injection. These are commonly used as drugs in the topical forms. And then we have astringents such as which reduces the exudation. Commonly used is potassium permanganate crystals, aluminum acetate crystals, aluminum acetate solution, that is Burroughs solution, nitrate. Then we have minoxidil, which is very commonly used in topical form for androgenetic alopecia and various other types of alopecias. It acts by increasing the blood supply to the hair follicle by vasodilatation, increases the duration of anagen phase, and converts the vellus hair into terminal. So these are the various topical medications which are used in dermatology. So there are plenty. Just you should remember the common ones and their side effects, how to use it, where to use it, the sites to use, which site has maximum absorption, which site has least absorption, age wise, how to choose a right topicals, knowing all the potency of the corticosteroids. All these are very important. So do go through all the sites slides, and if there is any doubts or any queries, please mail me to my email ID, which is drshricharit at the rate of gmail.com. That is Dr. Sricharit at the rate of gmail.com. Or you can always also meet me in the clinic. So thank you, and I'll be posting the MCQs after this class. Thank you very much.